Starfield, developed and published by Bethesda Game Studios in 2023, is a great video game. I spent just shy of 100 hours in its universe, completing the main story and all but one of the faction quest lines. I had a blast shooting up space, uncovering mysteries, and interacting with some surprisingly interesting characters. It was never my intention to review Starfield, it's just what I ended up playing for the better part of a month. So I'm hoping by doing this review it'll help me move on. It's not because I dislike the game, or that I'm sick of it. It's because, like a lot of BGS's previous works, I need to force myself to stop. Otherwise I may not play anything else for a very long time. Even with 100 hours under my belt, I still feel like there is so much I have yet to see. I do, however, feel like I have interacted with most of the mechanics and systems on offer here, and I dig what I played. That said, just because I need to force myself to stop playing doesn't mean that the game is so good that I can't stop. More so that its faults and triumphs are similar as the studio's past works, updated with some 2023 sensibilities. We still have the characters that must comment every time you enter the room, and all at the same time, unwieldy inventory management with encumbrance, and a lot of uninspired mission design consisting mostly of talk/collect/kill X. My first Bethesda game was Morrowind on the Xbox back in 2002. I would have been 9 years old at the time, and yet I feel like I understood it so much better than I do now when I try to go back to it. But that's neither here nor there. I'd go on to get Oblivion in the March of 2006. I remember it well as it was also the Australian release date for the Xbox 360. These games were wild, full of imagination, and unlike anything else I had played before. Bethesda just made games like no one else did. We would eventually get Fallout 3 and Obsidian's spin-off Fallout New Vegas, but the jewel in the crown was, and to most still is, the Elder Scrolls Skyrim. I played and loved Skyrim. I played and loved Skyrim when they sold it to me again, but this would be the beginning of a downhill slope for my relationship with Bethesda Game Studios. Next would come Fallout 4, which wasn't all that much different to Bethesda's previous work. In fact, I think a lot of people would argue that it was a step back from Skyrim. When I said earlier that no one makes games like Bethesda, I meant it. The problem is, even at this point, the games weren't evolving. Their games weren't new or fresh anymore, and they didn't inspire the endless possibilities of games past, because we all know in our hearts that it's going to be the same formula with a different coat of paint. Starfield, to me, is the best Bethesda game Bethesda have made to date. It invokes a sense of comfort and hominess to weary fans of the developer, almost like an apology for the missteps of the past that may just burn long enough to get us to Skyrim 2 Electric Boogaloo. So, let me tell you a little bit about Starfield. Starfield opens up with you in a mine, presumably to mine things. You get this slow walk through the joint, which eventually leads you to some artifact you are told to grab for some reason. It's all hush-hush, you see. Upon touching it, you get some flashing visions and pass out. As your character wakes up, you get the character creator. I'm not that big into character creators. To me, they're never worth the time to look ratio, and I don't get a lot out of fine-tuning these kinds of things. I did fiddle a little bit to get something that I liked, but I didn't spend much time here. It's a standard, good, character creator. You then get to pick a background and some perks. You won't be able to change these later on, so make sure you are super sure with your choices. For my run, I chose to be a gangster and had parents, snake worship, and something that made me better at combat in space. The background came into play quite a bit actually, sometimes getting me out of tricky situations. I also happened to run into my parents quite a bit. I would have liked to have been able to change these, whether it be with an item or some kind of rebirthing service. But at the end of the day, these choices didn't factor in enough to bother me. Just a quality of life thing that would have been nice. Once we're done creating our space adventurer, we get news a man named Barrett is coming to do something. Outside, we find said Barrett, who is closely followed by pirate faction the Crimson Fleet. This is like our little combat tutorial. The shooting in Starfield is pretty good. There's a dozen or so different kinds of guns, which can then be modified by God knows how many different modifications. Added onto this is grenades, jetpacks, and something I'm probably not forgetting, wink wink. The jetpacks add a layer of verticality to the combat, which is a nice addition. It's a B+ shooter, and it does the job of giving you something to break up the talk to someone, fast travel to somewhere else mission structure. The variety of guns all feel different enough from one another, and they all sound great too. Gun sound can really elevate a first-person shooter's game feel, and that is the case here with Starfield. Gun sound here is awesome, and it's pretty close to getting into the pantheon of best video game shotguns. That's probably where the good things I have to say about the combat end. Enemies are dumb as bricks, often playing keep away from the player and getting themselves stuck in odd places. The enemy variety is also pretty limited too. For the most part, you'll be fighting humans and a few varieties of aliens. At no point did I not enjoy clearing out a camp of humans though, it's just very samey. In my experience, most fights with aliens degenerated into them charging me and then me boost packing over the top of them, whittling away their health. There is really nothing to them, just keep jumping over their head and you'll be fine. Creatures have various weak spots, but that's all the variety you get. Starfield is a largely ranged combat game, so those expecting good melee combat can probably look elsewhere. There are very few melee weapon types, I think axe and sword. I didn't expect melee combat to feature much in this game, but I just thought it's fair to warn those that might. Another issue, which is an issue tied to the inventory management mechanics, is just how much time in combat you'll spend searching through your inventory looking for health items or guns that you have ammo for. Every enemy in Starfield drops their jetpack, spacesuit, gun, and ammo for that gun. Sounds good, you'll always have supplies, but in practice there's like 12 different ammo types, and it can force you to use guns you weren't really planning on using. I don't want to camp out on this for too long because it didn't detract too much from the fun I was having, but it could be much improved. I want to easily be able to use the guns that I've designed, but without a way to craft ammo, I'm often stuck using weapons dropped from basic enemies. Make matters worse, there is a lot of junk cluttered all throughout the game, making it harder than it needs to be to find what you need in the environment. Okay, so we've made our character, shot a few bad guys, and have just been given a ship by our buddy Barrett? What is waiting for us out in the stars? Well, like all Bethesda games, it's kind of up to you. You could follow your quest marker and go to the Earth's stand-in planet New Atlantis and meet your main quest faction, Constellation, or you could go explore the stars and see what happens. Both are good options. About Constellation and a bit on the story of Starfield, Constellation is a group of space explorers who have been hunting artifacts like the one you touched in the game's opening sequence. Where you factor into this is that you had visions, whereas most others can simply move the artifacts around with no effect. This sends us zip-zop planet hopping around, searching for more artifacts and to uncover the mystery behind them. I quite enjoyed the main story of Starfield. It's not fantastic or mind-blowing, but it does leave you with some cool things to think about. But what if you don't want to do the main story? Well, Starfield has hundreds of planets to explore, but it needs to be understood that the majority of them don't have a single good reason for visiting. They are procedurally generated and populated with pre-made generic locations. There's a lot of good environmental storytelling in these pre-made locations, but ultimately they function as like a quick and easy way to do some combat. Starfield isn't a game about exploring planets in space. It's a game themed about exploring space itself. I like to think of the galaxy map like the wilderness in another RPG. Each jump I make a chance to uncover a new handmade location or quest. There are a lot of things you can do in Starfield. Smuggling, base and ship building, a fun lockpicking minigame that wears out its welcome quick, space combat, mining, planet scanning, and spending hours organizing your personal inventory into your ship inventory. The thing is, excluding the absolutely fantastic shipbuilding, none of these mechanics are very deep, and it is rare that they interact with each other in a meaningful way. But they all contribute to this feeling of being an intrepid space explorer. A lot of systems in the game feel like they were at one point more elaborate, but were trimmed down for whatever reasons. Maybe some of them are just there purely for flavor or theming purposes and were never intended to be complicated. I'm not sure. What is clear is that either modders or Bethesda themselves have a fantastic canvas to add to and expand on, which is something exciting to look forward to. Shipbuilding in Starfield is fantastic. There are dozens of different parts to play with, and they all click together in such a satisfying way. Spending an hour in the ship builder and then seeing the ship on the dock and actually walking through it is a joy that I think is unique to Starfield and impossible to overstate. When it comes to actually using the ship, all you can really do with it is dogfight and collect space loot. Dogfighting occurs when you warp into an area and there are enemies about. If you get overwhelmed though, you can always easily warp yourself out. It's hard to nail my feelings on the dogfighting, but it's pretty similar to the combat. Feels and sounds good, but is ultimately pretty shallow and repetitive. You basically just do loops around the enemies while spamming the ship repair button until everything is dead. Another system here which is like fine, but feels more like a mini game than actually dogfighting in space. This means that the designs you make in the shipbuilder are more for you to have like an awesome mobile base, which is still cool, just a little bit more pointless. There are, I think, 4 main factions for you to join in Starfield, and they're all pretty good. Writing is above standard for Bethesda, but we're still cursed with the distracting mannequin NPCs. Like good gun sounds, good writing and voice acting can elevate a lack of fidelity from the in-game characters. Starfield has decent writing and decent voice acting, but characters are just so odd looking that it might take a bit of getting used to take them seriously. The reason I mention this is with the factions that it all ties into the mission structure of Starfield. For the most part, you'll be getting a quest from Person X, who will want you to go to a place and talk to Y, which will then send you into some combat encounter somewhere else. This is to say, you'll be doing a shitload of talking to NPCs, fast traveling, and sometimes quite long combat dungeons. Talk, fast travel, shoot is the core gameplay loop of Starfield, and boy is fast traveling convenient here. It's so easy just to use the menu to get around and almost never have to actually use your ship. It got so easy that I eventually had to force myself just to warp to random systems to check for missing quests that I wasn't getting just traveling between the main quest hubs. I guess I'm just trying to say that this game has a certain rhythm, and you have to be down for that rhythm. Most things in the game will give you XP to level up with. When you level up in Starfield, you get a perk point to put into something. There are dozens of these. Once you put a point into a perk, you will then have to do some kind of challenge before it'll allow you to put another point in. Think kill 10 NPCs with shotguns to be able to level up the shotgun skill again, or persuade 10 NPCs to be able to level up your persuasion. This works out okay and will stop you from wasting points in mechanics or systems that you haven't been engaging with, and lets you focus on the ones you want to engage with. A lot of basic systems, such as stealth or use of your jetpack, are locked behind putting at least one perk point into their corresponding skill. This means that if you didn't know better, you could assume the game was missing lockpicking or crafting. Once you get a few levels under your belt though, you become a mostly functioning adult human who can easily clear camps of enemies. I got up to level 50, and there are no shortage of skills for me to still invest in, though a lot of them could be considered duds. As for graphics, I think Starfield is pretty wonderful in its presentation, save for the NPCs. The visual clutter has a photorealism thing going on, and the art direction has a subdued charm to it. Going to the right planets at the right times can reveal some amazing vistas and landscapes. I'm not much for photo modes, but in Starfield I was using it constantly. So many beautiful shots to be taken, and they have the added bonus of coming up as loading screens. This gave me an immense feeling of sentimentality towards my character and adventure as a whole, because these pictures would remind me of why I'm still playing the game in times of boredom. I figure a lot of people are interested in the base building and planet scanning, but I'm not. I did a fair bit of base building in the early hours of the game and got a little factory working, but it never really served me any purpose and felt like an aesthetic thing to me. I didn't touch the mechanic for another 50 or so hours, and I was no worse for wear for it. Planet scanning, base building, it's all stuff No Man's Sky does and most likely does better. It's nice that it's here though, and that is kind of Starfield in a nutshell. It's a Bethesda game that has taken small parts of other games like shipbuilding, dogfighting, planet scanning, and improved first-person shooter and put them all into one game. I imagine a lot of cuts were made to keep the scope creep in check here, and Bethesda Game Studios deserves credit for not letting the game turn into a Star Citizen situation and shipping this honest and mostly bug-free game. I really enjoyed my time in Starfield and look forward to whatever DLC and mods come next. It would be nice if the systems in the game were expanded on, but if they never were, I still think this is a good video game. Starfield is the kind of game that you want when you've got nothing else to play and you've got nothing coming on the horizon. I have the feeling that it's going to be one of those games for me for years to come. It's familiar, easy to play, and cozy. I've also just realized that I haven't complained about any bugs or crashes because I didn't really have many. So huzzah for that. The amount of content in Starfield is staggering, and it definitely invokes the feelings of being a space explorer. But the systems the game is built upon are pretty weak when put under scrutiny. This is a solid 4 out of 5 that I think anyone who enjoys the FPS or RPG genre can get into. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next video.